And then as we go through, I'll probably be asking questions because we want this to be kind of like a conversation instead of a seminar or a lecture. So please feel free. Alicia's always so good. She's like taking notes, and then she always asks such thorough questions. And so we just love that. That's great. So, all right, our presenter tonight is John Wittler. He also works for OC, but he is also a consultant and owns his own business, two businesses actually, in Springfield, Colorado. So John, welcome.
Hey everybody. I think I have met everybody here at least once. You've got to see each other quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, haven't you? Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. All right. So you probably know that this is about goal setting, so I won't have to tell you that. But I'm going to share my screen, and as I pull that up, actually, before I do that, I would like to know, one, who is aware that you have 3 goals that you're supposed to set for your internship this summer? Anybody? Chris. Oh, Chris has got it. All right. And for the rest of you, you'll also notice as you look through what is going to be asked of you for doing a blog post, you're going to realize that your very last one, we're going to ask you to tell us how you did on these goals. So the idea of front loading this to the beginning of your internship is to give you a little bit of context around the 3 goals that we're asking for you to set, which is really just one goal in 3 different areas, right? So there's 3 areas that we'd like you to set a goal, and we're going to let's see if I can share my. All right, how about that? So 3 different areas, and my hope for the end of our time here together is that you'll be able to know off the top of your head the 3 different areas that we've asked you to set at least one goal in. And then we're going to talk about 3 different types of goals or processes for setting goals or ways to think about goals. And some of them will be appropriate to these 3 goals that we're asking you to set. Some of them might be more helpful in other areas of your life, but either way, we think that these will be helpful for you as you think about goal setting moving forward. And then lastly, I hope that you have a jump start on those 3 goals. So it seems like maybe some of you were unaware that we're asking you to do that, but we're going to kind of help you through a process to think about them. And then hopefully tomorrow, you'd be able to tell somebody what your goal is in each of the 3 areas. And on top of that, have some sort of an idea about how you're going to get there. So I can see most of you, although when I go to screen sharing, I lose a little bit. So does that sound good for everybody? I see a couple of heads nodding, so we're going to go with yes, that sounds good to everybody. The 3 areas. We want you to have a goal regarding communication, growing in communication, a goal in professional relationships or building your professional network, and we'd like for you to have a goal in leadership. So communication is one of those that I think seems on the surface that it's self-explanatory and completely self-evident, but communication is such a huge part of our life. And whether it is oral communication, whether it's communicating to a group, so oral communication, just one-on-one, how do you speak with your peers and your coworkers and others that you have to interact with on a daily basis, whether that's one-to-many, standing up and presenting. You'll be asked to do that in your harvesting ceremony as well. But there's also written communication, social media. Now, in our world, texting has become quite ubiquitous, and yet it's important to communicate well. So we're going to ask that you have a goal around communication, and we leave that pretty wide open for you to interpret what way you'd like to grow in that area. Professional relationships, that's one where I think sometimes when we say networking, we want you to network. That feels like it's transactional, like you're going out to make a relationship in order to get something back. And that's not what a professional network or a personal network is about. Certainly, it's about developing relationships with those that you interact with on a daily basis, and to develop a set of relationships that you can not leverage for your own good, not use to get somewhere you want to go, but to reach out to when you need help, and when you need help accomplishing something, and a group of people who know that they can reach out to you for one reason or another when you might have either a connection or a piece of knowledge that they need. And then leadership is, again, I think we can mystify leadership a little bit. It can seem scary or hard to reach, or just something that's not very well defined. But for this purpose, I'd like for you to think about leadership as the ability to influence for positive. So leadership can be, and that I would like for you to think about that in terms of an organization or your community or a group of people. So certainly it can be leadership when it's one-on-one, but generally we think of leadership in terms of our impact on more than one person. So that's how I'd like you to think about leadership. And before we go any further, I want to just check in and make sure that makes sense, that communication, professional network, professional relationships, and leadership or influence and impact on the group. Is that something that sounds doable to everybody and understandable? And I don't know if I can see your chats or not, but I'm going to ask you to hit up the chat box and let me know. Just give me a yes, that sounds good, or I've got a question, and then I'll let Abby let me know how we're doing on that. Oh, look, there we go. I got it. Everybody's sounding good. Nobody's got any questions. All right. Perfect. So the next thing that I would like to just ask is, before we get into the different ways that we might think about making a goal and accomplishing them, let's throw out a couple of ideas about potential goals in these three areas. It doesn't have to be the one you land on tonight, but I think it might help us as we start talking about goals to be able to compare it to some of the ideas that we've got within the group. So I'm gonna give you a couple of examples that I've seen over the last couple of years. And while I'm doing that, I would like for you just to pop an idea in the chat box if you've got an idea for a type of goal. So we had an intern in our office last year, and same request, same three goals that we asked everybody to make. And matter of fact, I think I gave this exact same PowerPoint at our retreat last year. So, but the communication goal that Aaliyah chose was she was very nervous talking one-on-one with people that she didn't know. And so her goal was simply to become comfortable talking to people who walked in the door, and to become comfortable having a fun conversation with somebody that she didn't know. And so that's just a pretty simple example of a communication goal. So this doesn't need to be, any goal that might, blow anybody's mind. It just needs to be something that will be growth for you. So I don't see anybody chatting any examples. So if I get to the end of a couple of examples, I might have to call out for a few. So let's and professional network. A couple of years ago, I had 3 interns that worked with our office, and one of them had a networking goal to be able to be on a first name basis with 3 adults that they didn't know before it started, and to understand what they did for work, and be able to call on them to ask them questions that were pertinent to their job. So they defined that as 3 different people that were new relationships, but not just friends or somebody they didn't know before, but somebody specifically who crossed paths with them at work in their internship. And now I'm going to see if anybody's got an idea for a leadership goal.
You guys can type it in
Sure.
the chat, or if you want to, and I'm happy to read it. Okay, so thanks, Chris. So Chris says, in communication, I started a business with our garden this year. I'm really good at doing the work and not talking to people. My goal would be to get better at talking to others. That's a great goal.
It's an excellent goal. All right, does anybody have any ideas around leadership? Oh, Sydney says, allow my community to know where to find locally sourced foods. All right.
That's great. That's great.
Or
if you want to unmute, you can feel free to unmute too. Please don't feel like you have to chat. Use the chat box.
All right, Luke says, for my leadership goal, or for leadership, my goal would be to lead more confidently and not get nervous. All right, that's perfect. Okay, well, I think we've met the minimum threshold at this point for giving me some ideas. And just so you know ahead of time that I am going to circle back at the end, and we're going to talk about these 3 goals again, and be able to talk about them in the way that, through these 3 different processes. All right, and one more from Emily beforehand. Leadership and communication. Be more confident in myself, especially when speaking to large groups of people. That can be such a nerve-wracking experience, can't it? Okay, so as I get into this, I am going to also be, at some point during this presentation, I'm going to use the chat box, and I'm going to send you a link. And in that link, there's it just links to a Google Drive file that would allow you to download a PDF, like just a simple worksheet to be able to document your goals for your internship. And that's something that you can, after we're done, transfer your goals to and revisit that before you make that 5th blog. All right, so SMART goals. I would bet in a group like this, a bunch of enterprising youngsters and a Chris, we're going to throw him right in the enterprising youngsters category too. Yes, that's right. A good smile and shake. I bet everybody knows what a SMART goal is. Who here has heard of SMART goals? Just raise your hand. I can see all of you. We don't have to chat that in. We got a couple. All right. Okay, so now you can practice with that mute button, and somebody can tell me what the S stands for. It's an acronym, right? So SMART gives us an idea of how to make a good goal. So does anybody know what the S stands for in SMART goal? Oh, we're thinking nobody's quite sure. All right, we're going to give this one away. Specific. So
anybody have some good resource, like, a device at the end of their fingers that would give them like 10 seconds? Do it the fastest.
All right, so yeah, we'll see who's already working on that.
Yeah.
So M, has anybody got an idea for what the M means in a SMART goal? All right, we're going to go with measurable. So specific and measurable. So in order to be a SMART goal, first we'll back up and cover the specific. We'll cover them one at a time on our way through here. So specific means exactly what it says. We need to be very clear about, so we can't say I want to get better at something. We need to be able to quantify better, right? So I might say that I want to be a better texter, but that's not going to help me actually accomplish that goal. In order to be specific, then I need to put something to that and say it would be measurably a better texter if I responded to every text within 10 minutes, right? If any of you, some of you are like, oh my gosh, 10 minutes, like try 10 seconds or 10 milliseconds. And, you know, that may be true too. But for me, I often will read a text and forget to ever respond. And so that's not maybe what I would say is a good. Another thing, I might think of it as a proficiency, right? And so I might specifically want to be able to text with one hand instead of two, or do what my kids do and text with their hand under the table, and I have, you know, no idea where all the buttons are on my phone. But so those are specific things, right? Now measurable, I think that one is pretty self-explanatory as well. You have to be able to measure. This kind of goes with specific, but it's specific to say, for example, you know, when Luke said that he'd like to lead more confidently and not get nervous. So not get nervous is pretty specific, but then how are you going to measure that? How would there be, in order to be in a SMART goal, how would we measure whether or not we're not nervous or not as nervous as we once were? So that might be very measurable. It might be like I only puked once before I had to get on stage, instead of, you know, I spent the whole 3 days prior as a nervous wreck. But measurable would be the M. Anybody got an idea of A? All right, I'll give it up then. That would be achievable or attainable. And this would be the point, just so you know, if we were like in person at the retreat, where I'd be offering somebody to like candy or a buck if they answered first. I have no ability to throw you a piece of candy right now, or to even bribe you to answer, but it sure make me feel good if somebody come up with the next answer before. So achievable. It's in order to be a SMART goal, not only does it have to be specific and measurable, but we have to actually be able to attain it. It has to be realistic and achievable. So I could say that I want to make $1 million in the next week, and that is both specific and measurable, but in my life and your life, that might not really be achievable and realistic. So that would kind of bump us out of being able to call that a SMART goal. All right, so now we got the R.
Come on, somebody look it up, look it up.
Relevant. All right, way to go, Tori.
Bonus points.
If nothing, I got no way to pay you, Tori, except for a smile. It made me feel as good as I thought it would. So it has to be relevant. It has to actually matter, right? So in the same way that I could say that I would like to have $1 million next week, and that be specific and measurable, I could say that I would like to have a collection of 1 million paper clips next week. And that might be specific, measurable, and might even be achievable for me. But if it's not relevant to anything I'm doing, and it doesn't matter in the end to getting me anywhere, then again, it violates the idea of a SMART goal. And we all want SMART goals, don't we? So how about the T? Has anybody got the T? Going once, going twice.
Good job,
Timely.
Tori.
Tori's on it. Timely. So it needs to be time sensitive, and the timeline needs to match what we're trying to accomplish, right? So if we meet all of these other criteria, then something is, we can be very specific. We can measure whether we've gotten there. We know it's possible to get there, and we know that it's relevant. But we fail to tie it to a timeline, then it may not end up helping us achieve what we want to achieve in life. So it might be, that we really need to know something, or we really need to achieve something in the next year, and we can meet all of this other criteria, but we fail to actually make a timeline that would let us know what we need to do when. We might actually put ourselves on a course to accomplish it in 5 years, or maybe we need to do it next month. For example, all of you are going to have a timesheet to fill out for your internship, and you can have everything right about it, but if you fail to do it in a timely way, then you're going to fail to get paid in a timely way. And so, we want to make sure that we put a timeline to our goals. So everybody feel like this makes pretty good sense as far as a SMART goal? Everybody understand what this looks like? You got some heads nodding. That's good. So now I'd ask any, I'm a big believer in letting people know both the good side of the coin and the bad side of the coin. So now I want to ask anybody, do you see any advantages to having a SMART goal? And do you see any disadvantages to having a SMART goal? So advantages, yes, you can give me the head nod or a sure in the chat, or just give me a thumbs up. Everybody's seeing some good advantages. Boy, this would be the place I might even up my ante then to $5 if we were in person for somebody to name me a disadvantage of a SMART goal. So let's say that we've used this process. What would be a disadvantage to using this process for setting our goals?
You can chat it.
The toughest question.
Yeah, you can chat it and I'll read it. And this is not a quiz. You're not getting a grade. So no wrong answers, guys. Just discussion. Alicia, what do you think? What would be a disadvantage? It looks like you're really thinking and you might have something there.
Well, I know in the past, I'm a part of Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership, and we talk about SMART a lot. And something that I've experienced personally and that we push for is that, like, there are outside experiences that will happen that we just can't control. And so, like, we should try our best to be, like, as successful as possible. But, like, in the end, there could be something that would happen and, like, we can't get discouraged by.
Excellent. And Jennifer chatted in as well, failing and not getting to the goal you wanted. That can be discouraging, can't it? So we're gonna talk about a couple of these, but disadvantages. They can seem sterile, right? And so sometimes it just seems like you're going through a list, and you might come up with something that says, I want to fill my timesheet out every day, and I can make that into a SMART goal. And you can, but it is a little bit, it might just seem like there's no excitement in that, right? And so things can line up with the SMART system and still not be entirely helpful or exciting, energizing. They can be gamed, right? So we can sometimes, and I've seen this in my work with adults sometimes, it's easy to find something that fits into this SMART category that you already know you can achieve before you start it. And it doesn't really need to be a goal. It's more just kind of checking boxes. And so that's certainly a disadvantage. And then to what Alicia was saying, success can be heavily dependent on things that are completely out of your control. So you might have had the best SMART goal in the world here about 2 months ago, and it required you to do things that just are not possible to do today. And so then that can leave you feeling like you failed your goal, right? And certainly failing any goal is a disadvantage, can be a disadvantage to that goal. But I'm gonna hold on to Jennifer's comment for the very next one that we're gonna talk about, and that's the idea of stretch goals. So has anybody heard of stretch goals? Maybe not so much. All right. So always a few people less that have heard of a stretch goal than a SMART goal. So a stretch goal is going to make a lot of sense with the name as we talk about what it is. So a stretch goal is something that seems almost impossible from the beginning. And one of the best examples I think of that is the railway in Japan, actually. After World War II and the Japanese economy was struggling, and if any of you are familiar with the geography there's a lot of mountains and valleys, and so it could take hours and hours, even days, to travel between cities on a train. And so people couldn't go from one city to the next to work, and the transportation minister just kind of made a declaration that Japan was going to find a way that you could move between one city and another in a matter of a couple of hours instead of a couple of days. And this was sort of just like, mind-blowing. There's no way we're going to be able to make this happen. We're traveling at 30 miles an hour. You'd have to travel at 80 miles an hour to make that work. And so there's no way to just make that a SMART goal. It seems like it is not attainable. It seems like it violates that. So a stretch goal is kind of just a mind-blowing goal that is going to require extreme change, creativity, or innovation to achieve. It's something that's going to require you to invent a completely new way of operating in order to achieve it. It's going to seem outrageous. That's both of those can be both advantages and disadvantages. One of the advantages to something seeming outrageous is that it gets everyone's attention. It gets your attention, and it gets everyone's attention, and can really focus on how to, instead of just how do we do the same thing better, how do we achieve what we want to achieve in a completely different way? And so to kind of give you the idea of the answer to the whole Japanese transportation, in the beginning, everybody wanted to build a little bit faster train, or to somehow improve the weight of the train, or how the rails were laid, and all of those produced some change and some growth, but never by more than a couple miles per hour. And so in the end, what they had to do was completely scrap their entire system and build what the speed trains that are used today. So it gets everyone's attention. It can really focus you on an outcome and accomplishing something versus getting stuck in the details of how to do what you're already doing just a slight bit better. Disadvantage, it can be very discouraging because it seems like it's not attainable. So you got to be careful with that. But the plus side of that is kind of getting back to Jennifer's chat, in that it causes us to fall forward often, because we achieve amazing growth even if we don't quite get to that stretch goal. And so when we look back, we can call it failure, right? It seems like we fell short, but in the end, what we did is we actually fell forward. We've made a lot of growth from where we started. And just kind of to repeat, it ensures transformational change instead of incremental change. Oh, look at that, waving with the dog. All right, so does this make sense to everybody? Anybody have any feedback on a stretch goal? Anybody have an idea about an example for what a stretch goal would be in your life?
Savannah, I remember at the beginning you were saying that your internship is at different places throughout the summer, that you're going to be at different places. So I think that for you, goals might be a little bit harder because you're not always doing the same thing over and over again to be improving. But I just wonder if a stretch goal might work well for you for your personal skills to really try to gain some goals there. Jennifer said, building my community would be a stretch goal. Yeah, something really large.
All right, so we'll come back to that, but I don't want to run out of time to have our discussion in the end, so we're going to keep moving. So the third one would be process goals. So I'm not sure that any of you would have heard of this. This is something that we've talked about quite often in the work that I do, but it's not something you hear a lot about when you're in school and even when you get into the workplace. But a process goal, what would that be? It's a commitment, really. It's a commitment to do certain things with excellence, repeated often, that will lead you to the realization of your dreams. So there's kind of a lot in that, and we'll break it down a little bit. But as a matter of fact, we'll have a couple of things that. So the first thing that's really important about a process, right, is a set of steps. A recipe would be a process. It would be the process that you go to, have. In my case, my favorite would be chocolate chipless cookies, right? So chocolate chip, no chocolate in it. Best cookie ever, just so you know. So part of my process has to be to leave out the chocolate chips. Anyway, so a recipe would be a process. It's a set of steps that, that it matters what order you do those steps in, and it matters that you do them all, right? So the process kind of falls apart if you forget a step. When you get in your vehicle to drive somewhere, you can get in the vehicle, you can put on your seatbelt, you can turn over the key, but if you never put it in gear, the process breaks down where you stop following the process. So the idea of a process goal is to think about an outcome that you want and to then break that outcome down into a process or a recipe, a set of steps that would guarantee that you get there. An example of this in a world that I work in often, an example of this would be sales. Sales generally will require that you do a certain activity a number of times. Years ago, you used to call clients, and so it would be that you just had to keep picking up the phone and calling people, and eventually somebody would talk to you. And then out of all of the people that talked to you, eventually somebody would buy from you. And so the process was just kind of broken down into making a certain number of calls. And you would talk to salesmen who would, the most successful would have goals about how many calls they were going to have before 10 o'clock, or how many goals they were going to have before they would allow themselves to eat lunch, calls. So that's one example. But to break this down into the world that we're all going to be living in this summer, perhaps you have a communication goal or a networking goal that would be, building a relationship with, say in networking, that you would know on a first name basis all of your coworkers. So you could break that down into a process. What's that going to take for you to be able to do that? Or when it comes to leadership, what's that going to take? And then once you choose the activity, then it's really just a commitment to continue doing those things to the best of your ability, and to trust the process to bring about a result. So a couple of things about that would be, some of you have probably heard the term, the end justifies the means. Has everybody heard that term before? Sometimes people use it in a positive context, although almost never. It's generally refers to someone who's willing to do anything to get what they want, right? Well, this this sort of goal and this sort of operation is kind of turning that backwards, and that's understanding that it's the means that secure the end. It is choosing to do something well, something that matters, and to do it well, and to continue to do it even when it doesn't seem to be working, because you trust the process. And in the end, it's that means or that process that will help you to achieve your goal. A couple of things to remember would be focus on specific activities. Break that down. Think about the recipe, think about getting in your car and driving somewhere. There's very specific activities, and you would use measuring cups, and so there's a lot of specificity in cooking or baking or even driving. So focus on very specific activities. And then secondly, focus on the sequencing. Same thing, if we go back to that cooking recipe, if you put in the flour first, it's not going to work. You want to do things in the right order, and that's what makes the process work. So with that, let's see, there's one other thing on here. So process goals honor the idea that success is the mixture of the right process combined with just sticking to it, just staying in there and persevering until you see success. Does that make sense to everybody? Am I talking in a way that makes sense? Can you see how this sort of way of thinking about a goal might help you accomplish something that you'd want to in your life? Luke says yes.
Yeah, there's quite a few nods and a thumbs up. So good deal.
Yes. All right. So with that, as I switch over, I told you I would chat you over a link. This will also be included in your follow-up email. And I think, although it's not done yet, that we could even include these slides available through a link as well, if you're interested in that, or they can be included in the follow-up, just to kind of give you an example and a way to think about these things. So now we have a little bit of time left, and I want to spend the time that we have left really getting to a place where you can make sense of your goals for your internship. So we've covered the three different types, and we talked about the 3 different areas in which we're asking you to make a goal. And so now I think we could start with some very specifics by just going back and saying, picking out a couple of these and seeing how we're gonna, how we would do that. So Sydney threw out the goal to allow my community to know where to find locally sourced foods. I'd like to get some ideas around what type of a goal do you think that is, or would be most helpful in using? We'll take chat or talking. All right, so I'm gonna.
Uh-oh, hold on, Sydney.
Oh,
sorry. Okay? You're muted. Can you unmute? Oh, you can't get it to unmute? No. Let me see if I can help you. I'm trying to unmute you and it's not working. Can you type it in? Yeah, I'm not getting anything. All right, well, can you hear us? That's okay. You can hear us. Okay, well, Sydney can't do anything more at this point, but all right.
I'm sorry about that. That's here's what I'm going to try for you, Sydney. I'm going to choose an option to put you in the waiting room, and then I'm going to try to pull you back from the waiting room. And sometimes that fixes audio issues. So hang with me. If you get disconnected, you can just click the link and get back in. And I'm sharing my screen, so you might have to look at the waiting room and let her back in, Abby.
Okay.
All right, so is this still helpful for me to be sharing my screen for you guys to see these, or can we go back to just seeing each other? It is helpful. Okay, that works out great. I can still see everybody pretty well. So, all right, Sydney's back and doesn't look like she's muted. Can we hear you? All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I was thinking about obviously blogging to try and allow my community to know where to find these things. Public lists, social media posts, just to inform people about where they can find these local products.
I think that's great. And so how would we, right off, I guess, I would suggest that to a degree, that sounds like a process goal. You could very easily break everything that you just said into a series of steps and know that if you just repeat those steps, that over time, then you will have accomplished letting people in your community know where to find those local foods. And so the work comes in identifying the process and laying it out, and then simply being diligent to follow that process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how about that would go in communication. That could also go in leadership as well. But I'm curious if anyone else has some ideas around any goal that you're thinking, and then I mean, we could go to Emily's. Emily's was the last one that was kind of put in there as an idea, which was be more confident in myself, especially when speaking to large groups of people. And so I just throw that. How about simply in communicating to groups of people? I'm going to drop the large from that, and we're going to just go with even groups of people. Anybody have an idea of something that would support the goal of becoming more comfortable presenting information to a group of people?
You could start with your family or your friends and then just move in people that you don't know.
That's a great idea. You know, just so I actually in my other work I help host a call for small business owners across Colorado, and try to give them some support in working with their businesses. And that right there is a trick that even we use, is to seed our audience, to do our best to recruit some people that would be a part of that audience, that could be a friendly face. If you need someone to look at that is friendly, if you start thinking, oh no, these people are going to get out their pitchforks and come after me, it's always nice to have a friendly face to look for. And then also it's nice, especially when you're starting out, to be able to encourage participation if you've got somebody who works with you, right? And sometimes it feels a lot easier to be in front of a group if you don't feel like you're alone. And even if you're the one that's presenting, it's helpful to bring a buddy. So I totally support that idea. Procedural question for you, Abby. I forgot to ask beforehand. What time am I supposed to wrap up? We got about 14 minutes left, I think. And so is there a little bit of time I need to preserve at the end? When would you like for me to be done?
Yeah, so we can go till 7, but we can wrap up before that too if we're done. But I think this is a great opportunity for you guys to actually be writing some of your goals right now. Why we can kind of bounce this off of each other. or you're gonna have to kind of do it on your own later, which kind of might stink. I don't know. It's up to you, you know. I hope you guys don't feel like this is a really vulnerable spot, because this is not. Like, we're all just creating these together. There's not necessarily a right or a wrong, but we want to make this applicable to your life.
Absolutely. I would be curious, in the chat box when we started, we had some communication goals. We had a couple that are leadership goals. I can remember back to some of my first work opportunities that came outside of, you know, for me, my beginning work started on a family farm, so that wasn't too scary. But then once I started getting outside of that, and even in some of the things that I participated in school, building relationships with people that I didn't know is something that's extremely difficult for me, even as an adult. And so I'd be curious if anybody has an idea of what their professional network goal might be. What would you like to do and accomplish around professional relationships during your internship?
Luke, where are you interning at? What are you going to be doing this summer?
I'm doing kind of what Savannah's doing a lot of different places. Just kind of like this week I'm at our electric co-op, and then I'll be going to a few other places.
So you guys have a great opportunity that you guys are bumping around to really work on networking, because you're not going to necessarily be able to master some of these other things or dive in as deep, because you'll be transitioning so often. But with networking, that is going to be a pretty easy one for you guys to do. And it could be as simple as every place that you go, you are going to learn 2 more people's names, or you're going to learn more about their background, you know, and you could be even more specific of like maybe how they got to this job. It's building that relationship part that you guys are going to have. That's kind of cool, actually. You guys are going to have numerous chances to practice that. So maybe at the first place, it's kind of hard and you're like, I don't want to ask, but then you go to the second place and it's a little bit easier, and you go to the third and it's a little bit easier. So there's that specific, and you can measure it too, you know, as you're going, of how many people that you receive that information from, or how many of the people that you talk to.
I might propose as well, for those of you who are still in high school. I mean, I think this, one of the cool things about the goals as we present them is I think they're approachable at any age and any stage of life and work. I could still have goals in all 3 of these areas. But something to think about when you're in high school around a professional network, something that I tell about every group of high schoolers that I ever present to, is if you have ambitions for college or education beyond high school, and you would like to access some scholarship funds and you'd like somebody else to help pay for that, one thing that is super important is that you have some people who are both willing to write you a reference letter and who know enough about you to write a good one. And so I have sat on several scholarship committees, and I can tell you that having good grades isn't enough, and going and having some good experiences alone is not enough. A lot of times what kind of makes the decision is there somebody besides this student's mother or teacher who is willing to write them a good recommendation letter, right? Because everybody has a mother who loves them, and everybody has a teacher who loves them. And so I think it could be a potential goal that you would be able to have good enough work ethic and to make a good enough impression that by the end of the summer you had 2 or 3 people who would say yes to writing a reference letter for you. And you know, it's very specific, and it's even okay to tell somebody up front, my goal is that I would like for you to be able to write me a reference letter when this week is over or when this month is over. And, you know, what would that take? And, you know, you can have that conversation up front, or you can, at the end of your time, say, man, I really enjoyed working with you. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to, you know, write a letter for me at some point if I need it. So that's one for professional network that I think is good. I think as you become more aware of what you are, you know, the career that you want to go, no matter, you know, where you're at in your career, there's always a next step. And I think it's really important to identify someone who is has already been where you want to go. So whatever that next step is, and sometimes it can be a lot more productive and a lot less scary to find a coworker rather than a mentor. So to find somebody who is just a little ahead of you on the journey, right? To maybe 2 years ago, they're where you are now. And you can learn a lot from them. And sometimes it's actually easier and more productive to learn from somebody that's just a couple of steps ahead of you than it is to learn from somebody who's 20 years ahead of you. And so that would be another thing that I would, you know, encourage you to think about as you're setting a goal for professional relationships is find somebody who is on a track, they're going in the right direction, and you're interested in that direction, and learn a little bit about how they operate, what they think is important, how they got to where they're at. Those types of things can give you a clue as to where you're going. And then I would say broadly as well, for those of you who are going to jump around a bit more in your internship, and some of you won't, but you'll be more like, you know, Tori, who's working with the chamber. It's not necessarily a new place all the time, but there's going to be a lot of new faces that come in there. Think about these communication goals as a way to build skills that will transcend what you're doing. So there are things like how do I communicate? Or how do I build good habits in communication? And those things will serve you no matter, you know, where you end up, and they kind of transcend where you're at the moment or where you'll ever be. So I think that's something worth thinking about.
Chris, do you have a good stretch goal? And the reason that I say you is because you are jumping in a pretty cool opportunity, and you know very more specifically of what you want to learn and grow out of this. So I was just curious if you had a stretch goal, maybe even around your professional networking as you're trying to build partnerships to supply food.
Stretch goal would be, hopefully, the idea that this year I've established 2 business accounts, but I would like to establish a dozen business accounts, provide produce to local businesses here.
That's great. And I would agree, that's totally a
That's
stretch
awesome.
goal, right? You're starting off and you already have a large number, like you're like, hey, 2 is minimal, but man, I really want to go big, you know, go big or go home. So that's great.
All right, so I'm looking at the time, and I want to do something that I intended to do a few minutes ago, and that is, so not around what your specific goals are, but I'd like to open it up, and if you've got a question for me around goals at all, then I'd be happy to take that. And I'm not going to hang up right at 7, but I want to respect your time. So does anybody have any questions that you'd have either for me or I probably would throw Abby in that too, since she's in the role she's in.
So I'll ask this because when these opportunities come up, they're almost too good not to ask. Tell us one goal that you set and you failed at.
Oh boy, so numerous, right? So I'll start you with a quote there, and then I'll get to a specific. Okay, so I feel the same about goals as I do planning. And the quote, I don't remember who said it. It was some dead president, because all the good ones were said by some dead president. But it is that planning is indispensable and plans are worthless. And so the concept is that it's the process and it's what you go through in making plans that actually matter, because you're going to set plans and the world's going to change and you're not going to reach it. And I feel the same thing about goals. If you get to the end of your internship and you haven't met your goals, no big deal. The process that you go through in setting a goal and then striving to achieve it is the part that actually matters. The goal itself, some will disagree with me in this, but I believe the goal itself is secondary and really doesn't matter as much. So that was important, but it was also trying to give me cover to think of a specific one that I would share. And what comes to mind, and I don't want to choose, is money. I think that it's so easy to set money goals, and I can tell you that I've set a lot of money goals, and some of them I've made, and some of them I haven't. Most of the goals that I've set and not achieved were that. I'm going to pick a leadership goal, and I had a goal to actually be to achieve a leadership position in an organization and to be the leader of that organization. And I kind of thought of it as a SMART goal, and I broke it all down, and there's specific timelines, just like any leadership position for an organization. Usually that is tied to some sort of an election. And so this was that way, and I did a lot of work, and I knew exactly the date that my dream was going to come to fruition, and I worked really hard, had it all set, and boy, I thought it was all in the bag, so to speak. And it was a little bit devastating to go through that. And for me, who I don't consider myself a real outgoing person, I don't consider myself a people person, but this was something I wanted to do, and had an impact tied to it that I wanted. And so it was really almost devastating to then go through the process where I was not voted in, because there had to be people that made the specific choice that they did not want me to do that. And the truth is, that's how it felt. What they really had decided was that they wanted someone else to do that. And it wasn't personal to me, but it sure felt that way in the moment. And so anyway, I think that's the one I would share. It fit probably all three of these types of goals. It was a stretch for me, but it was something I could break into a SMART goal. And then boy, I thought I was in a good place, and I was in a good place. But again, back to the quote, what I learned in that process was far more valuable, both about myself and about others, and about how to work with others and deal with rejection, all of those things. Everything I learned was far more valuable than had I been elected to that position. So
yeah, and I'd even add on that, if you were to make goals, if we were all to make goals and we achieved all of them, that probably is wrong. I think it's definitely, it's the process. So if we make things too easy and we make our goals just that are already in our hands and we don't have to work for them, then it's probably defeating the purpose of what a goal should be. So that stretch is really important.
A goal, yes, should not be a foregone conclusion. If you already know how it's going to turn out, it's not really a goal. It's just something that you're gonna do. So Be bold and be resilient. You'll not make a couple of them, but I would encourage you to set a goal that you have no idea if you'll make, but that you would like to.
Well, thanks for sharing, John. I put you on the spot there.
You bet.
Sorry, that was the hard one.
No problem. No problem. So let's see. I think you probably all have my email address as well. But if you do not, it's really easy. I'm John at ogallalacommons.org. So if you have any feedback or any personal questions or just want to circle back after this, I certainly want to make myself available to that. And that offer stands throughout your internship and beyond. So you are now in the club of people who can email me and get an answer, but it won't be within 10 milliseconds or even 10 minutes. So now we've
always,
made it full circle.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they'll teach you something about that.
Yes.
Like always, guys, please do not feel like you're on an island and you're all alone in your community doing your internship, because you aren't. We are all in this together during these crazy times right now. So please reach out to John, to Daryl, reach out to any of us, and we are happy to help you, even if that is just having some feedback on what your goals are, or even if it's like, I'm having a hard time with my coworker, she yelled at me, I don't know how to proceed. We are happy to walk through those types of situations with you. And so anything that you need, please reach out. Does anybody have any questions? We are wrapping it up. Anybody have any questions before we go? No? All right. Well, if I recall, you guys have to do so many Zooms. Does everybody know how many they have to participate in? 2. Very good. And if it's your first time doing an internship, there's very specific ones that you have to be a part of also. Feel free to participate in more. We're here every Wednesday night for a bunch of different topics. And so feel free to join us anytime that you guys want, okay? So with that, that's it. You guys have a great night. You'll get a follow-up email.
Thank you, guys.
So if you need anything else, let us know. Bye, guys.